This week began with the fallout of the murder of Alex Pretti in Minneapolis, and it ended with a government shutdown. This week, the attacks on our constitutional rights escalated exponentially. Journalists, including Don Lemon, had their First Amendment rights violated when they were arrested for covering a protest in a church. The federal government went with the argument that being lawfully armed in a protest is justification for summary execution by masked thugs violating the Second Amendment, and DHS agents are violating the Fourth Amendment every single day while they kidnap children using administrative warrants and terrorize communities based on the orders of Stephen Miller and Greg Bovino. ICE agents are going to be providing private security to the U.S. delegation at the Winter Olympics in Milan, Italy. Nicki Minaj was given a Trump gold card and claimed she had gotten U.S. citizenship while the administration said it was just a novelty card. The Melania movie premiered and nobody cared, and Craigslist ads were put out to pay people to attend screenings. Democratic Representatives Ilhan Omar and Maxwell Frost were attacked by right-wing lunatics. Democrats got DHS funding out of the spending bill. The government shut down anyway. Trump sued the IRS over the release of his tax returns a decade ago. He then yelled at a reporter when she asked him about it. ICE is buying more and more warehouses to continue to kidnap and torture migrants. More federal prosecutors resigned over DHS's actions. 3 million more Epstein files dropped and then disappeared when the regime realized how bad they all looked in them. Lindsey Graham was wasted on TV while Marco Rubio was popping pills in front of the Senate. Oh, and the FBI raided the Fulton County Elections Office while Tulsi Gabbard skulked in the background like Putin's personal puppet. We've got a lot to get into today. I'm Molly, and welcome to the Sunday News Wrap-Up. I want to start by talking about Alex Pretti. He was a 37-year-old ICU nurse for the VA who was killed when DHS agents put 7 to 10 bullets in his back. Those DHS agents have been put on administrative leave according to the Trump regime, and we still do not know their identities. After Alex Pretti was murdered, the entire country came together to mourn and honor him, whether it was candlelight vigils that DHS agents would sometimes tear gas, or memorial bike rides in his honor. The entire country was collectively mourning for him. And the son of one of his patients put out this incredibly touching video of Alex Pretti saying final words over his father's body.
Terrence Lee Randolph, March 30th, 1947, December 10th, 2024. Today we remember that freedom is not free. We have to work at it, nurture it, protect it, and even sacrifice for it. May we never forget and always remember our brothers and sisters who have served so that we may enjoy the gift of freedom. So in this moment, we remember and give thanks for their dedication and selfless service to our nation in the cause of our freedom. In this solemn hour, we render them our honor and our gratitude.
Those were incredibly poignant words that Alex Pretti spoke, and he honored those words, and he lived and died by those words. And of course, as soon as Alex Pretti was murdered in an incredibly violent and public way, the administration already had their talking points in order. Both Greg Bovino and Kristi Noem claimed that he was a domestic terrorist who brought a weapon to a protest with the intent to massacre officers. There is no evidence of that being true, but it didn't stop both Bovino and Noem from spreading this lie. This is a clip I put together of Kristi Noem speaking at the press conference describing what happened to Alex Pretti, overlaid with what actually happened to Alex Pretti. Content warning on this video. It is incredibly difficult to watch, but we cannot look away.
Storm and its impact, I do want to address the tragic situation that we saw in Minneapolis today that unfolded on the streets. It occurred with DHS law enforcement as they carried out their lawful duties to keep Americans safe in the threat of criminal illegal aliens in this country. At 9:05 a.m., Central Time, the Department of Homeland Security law enforcement officials and officers were conducting targeted operations in Minneapolis against an illegal alien whose criminal history included domestic assault with intentionally inflicting bodily harm, disorderly conduct, and driving without a valid license. An individual approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. The officers attempted to disarm this individual, but the armed suspect reacted violently. Fearing for his life and for the lives of his fellow officers around him, an agent fired defensive shots. Medics were on the scene immediately and attempted to deliver medical aid to the subject, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. The suspect also had 2 magazines with ammunition in them that held dozens of rounds. He also had no ID. This looks like a situation where an individual arrived at the scene to inflict maximum damage on individuals and to kill law enforcement. About hundreds of protesters then showed up at the scene. They began to obstruct and to assault law enforcement officers. We saw objects being thrown at them, including ice and other objects, and a rampant assault began, and even an HSI officer agent's finger was bitten off.
Now we can all clearly see what happened in that video. Alex Pretti was holding a phone. He was carrying legally. He had a legally registered firearm on him, but he did not pull it out. He did not point it at the officers. In fact, he was disarmed before they unloaded on him. Now, of course, if you go ask Greg Kelly at Newsmax, he thinks a gun and a phone look exactly the same.
Does that look like a gun? I think it does a little bit. It's a phone. It's black, like most phones. That's crazy stuff.
That is absolutely embarrassing cult behavior by Greg Kelly right there. And even if it was true that phones look like guns, that's not how Alex Pretti was holding his. He was holding it like this, and the DHS agents got scared. And I just want to say, I don't think we've talked enough about how insane it is that that one officer just started firing into a pile of moving bodies. Everything in that video is against police protocol. Now here's Greg Bovino basically saying the same thing, that this guy was a domestic terrorist and that he's actually a suspect and the ICE agents are victims.
This is only the latest attack on law enforcement. Across the country, the men and women of DHS have been attacked, shot at, doxxed, had their family members threatened. And, as we have seen, more than 100 vehicle rammings over the past year against federal law enforcement. We will not allow violence against our law enforcement officers, and we need state and local help. State and local law enforcement to help us coordinate to get violent criminals off the streets. Mayor Fry and Chief O'Hare just a few minutes ago did the opposite of that by omitting the fact that the suspect had a gun and magazines full of ammunition. In what looks like a situation, again, where an individual wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement. I want to reiterate what President Donald Trump, Secretary Kristi Noem, myself, Director Marcos Charles, and so many others have said time and again. If you obstruct a law enforcement officer or assault a law enforcement officer, you are in violation of the law and will be arrested.
So yeah, he's got the same script as Kristi Noem, that ICE agents and DHS agents are being doxxed and attacked and threatened, and that Alex Pretti is the actual suspect. And the ICE agents, they're the real victims here. Here's another clip of Greg Bovino trying to use the German pronunciation of Gestapo because, you know, he respects the original. And basically him saying that if you threaten us, if you call us Gestapo, there will be consequences to that. You know, the day after Alex Pretti was murdered, he's saying there's going to be consequences to speech.
Calling law enforcement names like Gestapo or using the term kidnapping, that is a choice that is made. There are actions and consequences that come from those choices. And then when someone chooses to listen to a politician, a so-called journalist, a community leader that spouted that type of vilification towards law enforcement or anything else, when you choose to listen to that, that is a choice, and there are consequences and actions there also.
You hear that? This guy doesn't like when we call him a Nazi. This guy who made the choice to wear that outfit and pose for this Nazi-ass looking picture. He doesn't like it when you call him a Gestapo agent. So not only does pocket-sized Heinrich Müller himself get his little tiny feelings hurt when you call him a Gestapo agent, but this entire regime has decided that the appropriate course of action in the wake of the killing of Alex Pretti is to attack the Second Amendment. We had Greg Bovino and Kristi Noem saying that because he was legally armed, they had no other choice but to assume that he was there to do maximum damage to law enforcement. With no evidence beyond the Greg Kelly reality where holding a phone like this looks like you're pointing a gun, the entire regime came together and said, no, actually you don't have the right to carry a gun at a protest. Here's Donald Trump saying just that you don't get to have guns.
Mr. Pretti acting as an assassin. Do you think he was acting as an assassin in Minneapolis?
Who is that?
Mr. Pretti, your deputy chief of staff said that. You don't think so?
With that being said, you know, he can't have guns. He can't walk in with guns.
What about the Second Amendment?
Listen, he can't walk in with guns. He can't do that. But it's just a very unfortunate incident.
What about the Second Amendment, sir?
So we'll work something out.
So the new talking point is you can't have guns. Here's Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, saying that you can't actually bring a loaded gun to a protest.
Come find you. And as for this latest shooting, yes, DHS and HSI are the lead, and the FBI is processing the physical evidence, so we're in possession of the firearm, which is going to go to our laboratory. But as Secretary Noem said, no one who wants to be peaceful shows up at a protest with a firearm that is loaded with 2 full magazines. That is not a peaceful protest, and you do not get to touch law enforcement. You do that anywhere, this FBI is going to be leading the charge to arrest those.
But how was he threatening Border Patrol? You've collected the evidence, you said, right? You have the handgun in your possession?
That's right.
And how was he using that handgun in terms of threatening Border Patrol? What was the threat? He had his camera, right? He was filming it.
That's something that I will let the DHS and the prosecutors, because they are the ones investigating that case. I don't want to stylize that evidence, but I trust the men and women on the ground who are trained professionals to only use it when it's absolutely necessary. And I trust Secretary Noem's leadership and DHS and HSI to do the right thing, as they've always done in these scenarios.
First of all, DHS and Kristi Noem have continually caused chaos. So I don't know what you're talking about, Kash Patel, when you say that they're doing everything right like they always have been. Also, Kash, what would you know about doing things right? You're most well known for flying your girlfriend around on the private FBI jet so she can go to UFC fights and sing the national anthem. And second of all, Kyle Rittenhouse showed up to a protest like this, and he was treated like a hero by the American right after he killed people. The entire Second Amendment and MAGA movement stumbled all over themselves to try and justify what Kyle Rittenhouse did. So if Alex Pretti was a Republican and those DHS agents were actually, Capitol Police or Minneapolis protesters, the Republicans would be hailing him as a hero right now. Instead, they are all following the orders of Stephen Miller and calling him a domestic terrorist. This is a tweet from Stephen Miller mere hours after Alex Pretti was killed, saying a domestic terrorist tried to assassinate federal law enforcement, and this is your response? You and the state's entire Democrat leadership team have been flaming the flames of insurrection for the singular purpose of stopping the deportation of illegals who invaded the country. And he was responding to a tweet from Amy Klobuchar denouncing what happened. I don't even think we knew Alex Pretti's name by the time that Stephen Miller put out this tweet. But that didn't stop him from spreading lies and ripping up the Constitution. The entire administration is trying to run cover for these agents. We still don't know who they are. And on top of the fact that they murdered Alex Pretti and stole his phone, they have also been harassing witnesses that were there. There are reports from other witnesses saying that the DHS agents actually kidnapped witnesses who were filming the interaction. This is from a signed affidavit of one of the witnesses. She says, the agents pulled the man on the ground. I didn't see him touch any of them. He wasn't even turned toward them. It didn't look like he was trying to resist, just trying to help the woman up. I didn't see him with a gun. They threw him to the ground. 4 or 5 agents had him on the ground and they just started shooting him. They shot him so many times. I don't know why they shot him. He was only helping. I was 5 feet from him and they just shot him. The video I recorded of what happened accurately depicts the events leading up to the agent shooting him and several minutes afterwards. The video is attached as Exhibit 1. I have read the statement from DHS about what happened and it is wrong. The man did not approach the agents with a gun. He approached them with a camera. He was just trying to help a woman get up and they took him to the ground. I feel afraid. Only hours have passed since they shot a man right in front of me, and I don't feel like I can go home because I heard agents were looking for me. I don't know what the agents will do when they find me. I do know that they're not telling the truth about what happened. I've heard that other witnesses might have been arrested and taken to the Whipple building. I am disgusted and gutted at how they are treating my neighbors and my state. I keep alternating between crying and feeling determined. It is important to remember the value of documenting injustice. That is a statement from one of the women who recorded what happened to Alex Pretti, and she also went on Anderson Cooper and gave this testimony.
That's shocking about the number of shots is that the last 5 shots or so are actually from a distance where he appears already lying on the ground, not moving. Do you remember that? Again, this is happening in
I mean, honestly, Alex
seconds.
being shot is the most memorable part of it. The agents are not a part of that, I think, because I watched him die. I mean, I watched him die. I remember him arching his back and his head rolling back, and it was so fast moving, but not for me. Like, when they left, when they fled, which now I see, that after the shooting, they decided to just scatter and save themselves. Watching him die, and then after, I've watched people die before in more of a calculated and planned way, like, hospice in various ways. You know what that looks like, and I knew he was gone because I watched it. And then they come over to try to perform some type of medical aid by ripping his clothes open with scissors and then maneuvering his body around like a rag doll, only to discover that it could be because they wanted to count the bullet wounds to see how many they got, like he's a deer. I watched that, and that is what it felt like they were doing, and that is part of why I was like, what are you guys doing? Why would you jostle his body around like that? You're not even doing anything to help him. But I knew he was gone.
You knew he was gone then?
I knew he was gone.
That woman is incredibly brave for speaking out publicly about what she witnessed. And the murder of Alex Pretti was just the culmination of weeks, if not months, of extreme violence and terror happening in Minneapolis. The administration's response and Greg Bovino being terrible on television actually led to Greg Bovino's removal from Minneapolis. Now, a lot of MAGA influencers were really upset about this, like Nick Sorter. When Bovino was removed, Nick Sorter tweeted out, "There is no longer a commander-at-large of the U.S. Border Patrol. The position has been eliminated. This is ridiculous." And then he updated and said, "I can confirm President Trump was not aware of the prior decision to remove Greg Bovino from his role as Commander-at-Large of the U.S. Border Patrol, nor was Secretary Noem. Trump and Noem fully back Mr. Bovino, and someone down the food chain, as we'll say, will have a rough week." I'm not sure who down the food chain refers to, but this administration is literally just throwing each other under the bus. Kristi Noem basically said that she's just been following Stephen Miller's orders. Kristi Noem is the head of DHS. I'm not sure who else would have had the power to remove and retire Greg Bovino. But that's the thing about MAGA. They are incapable of recognizing that every decision made in the White House does go through Donald Trump. Anytime something bad happens or something they don't agree with happens, they always will just be like, oh, Donald Trump needs to stop taking advice from these rhinos or whatever. They will never acknowledge that Donald Trump just sucks. They all think that Trump is some weird benevolent daddy to them who would never get rid of their Gestapo general, that it must be somebody else pulling the strings and manipulating old daddy Trump. When in reality, it's blatantly obvious that Donald Trump is just incredibly incompetent, and this entire regime all hate each other and will just throw everybody else under the bus to protect themselves. And at the same time, I'm sure Bovino's not done. He has been terrorizing this country for almost a year now. Alex Pretti was not the first person that was shot and killed by his SS soldiers. Renee Good was also killed in Minneapolis. They also killed a man named Silverio Gonzalez in Chicago during a traffic stop. And they killed a man named Isaias Sanchez Barboza in Rio Grande, Texas. when a Border Patrol agent had a struggle with him during a targeted operation. They've also shot and injured multiple others. And last year, they killed like 35 people inside of their detention facilities. So the administration did not remove Greg Bovino because they think what he's doing is wrong. They removed him because he was making them look bad, because he was not handling the fallout of it well. And they barely even removed him. He was just seen in Vegas recently partying it up. And if you still have any doubts that Greg Bovino is an evil, sick freak, this is a video taken of him last summer in Chicago telling his agents that they basically have free reign to do whatever they want.
Arrest as many people that touch you as you want to. Those are the general orders all the way to the top. Everybody fucking gets it if they touch you. You hear what I'm saying? Less legals? We're going to look at shipping tractor trailer loads of that shit in here. So you catch what it's all about us now. It ain't about them. Professional, legal, ethical, and moral. You know what we're talking about. Legal, ethical, moral. You're on camera. But other than that, it's what we do. What city is it, Chief? It's fucking ours. It's our fucking city.
You hear how he says that? Those are the orders, all the way from the top. Everybody fucking knows it, he says. So this isn't just Greg Bovino going rogue. This is designed. This is purposeful. They want the chaos to continue. They just want someone who's better on camera than Greg Bovino. And the violence has continued this week, even after Greg Bovino's removal. Donald Trump replaced Greg Bovino with Tom Homan to run the terrorist occupation in Minnesota. And the chaos has only escalated. One ICE agent was filmed telling a resident of Minneapolis that if he raises his voice at him, the ICE agent will erase his voice.
I will tell you this, brother. What? You know? I will tell you this. You raise your voice, I raise your voice.
If I raise my voice, you'll erase my...
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
Are you serious? You said if I raise my voice, you'll erase my voice?
ICE agents also attempted to raid the Ecuadorian embassy, and then Trump's state regime propaganda, Fox News, tried to justify it by saying that ICE was chasing down a terrorist, predator, illegal immigrant, whatever. When in reality, ICE agents are just a bunch of illiterate, racist dum-dums who saw a bunch of brown people going into a building, ignored the word embassy because they don't know what it means, and just tried to go in and kidnap people. And in the footage of the ICE agents trying to enter the Ecuadorian embassy or consulate, they don't say anything about chasing down a wanted criminal. They don't present a warrant. They don't say that the people inside the building are obstructing. They basically just back off when they're told they can't go in. So I'm not really buying the idea that they were chasing some terrifying wanted criminal. Here's that clip, and judge for yourself if you think the ICE agents are in the right here. In my humble opinion, I think it's most likely here that these ICE agents just don't understand the Constitution or international law and think that they can just walk into a foreign country's embassy and start kidnapping people. These ICE agents are all just ridiculous goons. Ken Klippenstein did a pretty in-depth article about, he spoke to a bunch of ICE agents in anonymity, and they told him that they are out there drinking on patrol. The guys are all just drunk maniacs laughing about how this is just like Call of Duty. And the night that Greg Bovino was technically removed from his position, a bunch of ICE agents were drinking in a hotel room and mooning people below them. These are not professional law enforcement officers. These are just racist, sexist losers. These men are incredibly violent, and they clearly hate women, just like Jonathan Ross when he shot and killed Renee Good. He yelled out, "fucking bitch." These ICE agents every single day are hurting and throwing women down hills, like this older woman in Durango, Colorado, whose phone was snatched by an ICE agent before he tossed her down a hill.
Take my phone. You cannot. Oh, that's illegal, sir. That's kidnapping. Hey! Get off of her! Stop that shit! Hey! You need to get off of her right now!
Get off! Get the fuck off!
You stole her phone! Hey! Call 911! Someone call 911! Call 911! Someone call the police! What's your name? That is assault. That is kidnapping of her phone.
What's your name?
That was illegal.
What's your name?
What's your badge number? Someone call 911. You legally have to identify yourself. This is a part of the Constitution. Identify yourself. What's your name?
Who are you?
What's your name? I said shame! Shame!
DHS agents in St. Peter, Minnesota also tried to kidnap and potentially kill a woman because she was following them. She got dash cam footage, and in the dash cam footage, you can see them jump out of their vehicle and point their guns out at her while she's on the phone begging people to call 911. This woman is safe. The chief of police of St. Peter was able to intervene and got her home. Here's the clip.
I think someone needs to call 911. They are seriously, attacking me.
We'll call 911 right now.
Yep.
What's your location?
Call 911. I'm right at the corner of Jefferson.
Get out of the car right now!
No, I will not. I will not get out of the car. No. I will not get out of the car. You guys, I need CEOs here now.
Get out of the car.
No, I will not get out of the car. You can't do this. Get your hands off of me. Get your fucking hands off me. Get your hands off me. I am not doing shit. I am observing. I am observing. I have not done anything. This is my constitutional right.
Calling 911 right now.
I am not. You cannot arrest me. I'm observing. You can't arrest me. I'm observing. You cannot. I am not doing anything.
We're taking a video too.
Get off of me. Get off of me.
You're under arrest.
Someone call the MP, or someone call the police.
Somebody help them.
Call the police. Call the police. Call them now.
That woman is a United States citizen, and the Department of Homeland Security is justifying their actions by claiming that this woman was impeding in their targeted operation to arrest a violent criminal, sex offender. That is always their go-to tactic. They claim that whoever they attack or assault got in the way of a targeted operation of some violent criminal. But it's all lies. It's all bullshit. A tiny fraction of people that they have arrested have criminal records. For the most part, they're just kidnapping and detaining people overnight for weeks at a time, for months on end for some folks, and not even charging them with anything. This woman was released to the chief of police with no charges. So if she did commit some kind of crime, why would they not actually charge her? It's because the law doesn't actually matter to them. All they care about is causing chaos and spreading lies and a false narrative, which is why they're so bad at follow-through. Now, this has led to actual political fallout. Democrats were able to get DHS funding out of the appropriations bill, which didn't even actually matter because the government ended up shutting down anyway. But federal prosecutors are also quitting en masse from the Department of Justice, including federal prosecutors who have been working on the fraud claims coming out of Minnesota. So federal prosecutors who are literally trying to prosecute the people responsible for the fraud that folks like Nick Shirley thought was the most important thing ever are quitting because of DHS's actions. Democrats flipped 2 seats in the Minnesota House, narrowing the Republican majority. Democrat Christian Menifee won a Texas special election for the U.S. House. Now, to be fair, that was a district that Kamala Harris won in 2024, but there was a Senate race also where Democrat Taylor Remmett won his special election. To be clear, that was a state Senate race, but that's still a pretty big deal, a pretty big flip. Also in Minnesota, the Republican frontrunner for governor, Chris Medell, dropped out of his race, citing DHS and Greg Bovino and the killings as to why. He talked about how ICE agents have been harassing off-duty police officers for the crime of driving while not being white. And he talked about how he wanted to be able to look his daughters in the eye and say that he did the right thing. Another fallout of all the horrific actions that DHS has taken is the story of Liam Ramos. Liam Ramos is the little boy in the bunny hat that was kidnapped by ICE agents outside of his preschool and used as bait to then kidnap his father, and where then they were sent to Dilley Detention Center in Texas. Dilley Detention Center is where we got this horrifying footage of a attorney who represents, I believe he's Liam Ramos's attorney, and he represents other folks who have been taken to this detention center. He filmed himself outside as people were screaming for help from inside the concentration camp.
I'm outside. I'm outside. It doesn't say out here. And I've just been ordered to leave the premises. I'm outside of the Dilley facility here in South Texas. There's a demonstration of detainees taking place inside right now. We were all asked to leave. There's a drone flying up ahead right now. It's an extremely bizarre situation. You can hear them shouting. Can you hear that? They're shouting, "Let us out, let us out." There's people in blue shirts. Again, there's drones flying up ahead. There appear to be hundreds of people through the crack that I can see. And again, I was here for an attorney visit and they asked me to leave abruptly without telling me why, ordering people who were waiting to stand outside in the cold.
Those are children being held in a prison, and they are not allowed or able to contact their attorneys. Democratic Representative Jasmine Crockett and Joaquin Castro went and were able to get into the Dilley Detention Center to visit Liam Ramos. When they visited him, it was discovered that he was getting really sick because these concentration camps, their food and the water that they're using for baby formula is disgusting. The food has bugs in it, and little baby Liam Ramos was just sleeping and severely depressed. But there is good news in that front. Liam Ramos was released late last night after a federal judge issued a scathing order demanding his release. The judge says before the court is the petition of asylum seeker Adrian Conejo Arias and his 5-year-old son for protection of the great writ of habeas corpus. They seek nothing more than some modicum of due process and the rule of law. The government has responded. This case has its genesis in the ill-conceived and incompetently implemented government pursuit of daily deportation quotas, apparently even if it requires traumatizing children. This court and others regularly send undocumented people to prison and orders them deported, but do so by proper legal procedures. Apparent also is the government's ignorance of an American historical document called the Declaration of Independence. 33-year-old Thomas Jefferson enumerated grievances against a would-be authoritarian king over our nascent nation. Among others were, he has sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people. He has excited domestic insurrection among us, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. We, the people, are hearing echoes of that history. And then there is that pesky inconvenience called the Fourth Amendment, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and persons or things to be seized. He goes on, civics lessons to the government. Administrative warrants issued by the executive branch to itself do not pass probable cause muster. That is called the fox guarding the hen house. The Constitution requires an independent judicial officer. Accordingly, the court finds that the Constitution of these United States trumps this administration's detention of petitioner Adrian Conejo Arias and his minor son, LCR. The great writ and release from detention are granted pursuant to the attached judgment. Observing human behavior confirms that for some among us, the perfidious lust for unbridled power and the imposition of cruelty in its quest know no bounds and are bereft of human decency, and the rule of law be damned. Ultimately, petitioners may, because of the arcane United States immigration system, return to their home country involuntarily or by self-deportation, but that result should occur through a more orderly and humane policy than currently in place. Philadelphia, September 17th, 1787. Well, Dr. Franklin, what do we have? A republic, if you can keep it. With the judicial finger in the constitutional dike, it is so ordered. Signed this 31st day of January 2026. That judge did not mince words. And Joaquin Castro posted earlier today that Liam Ramos is home and safe. Liam Ramos even got to go to the pilot cabin and received wings on his flight home. The protest, the pressure, it's working. Liam Ramos is safe now, thanks to the actions of Democrats, of federal judges, of protesters, of attorneys. But that has not stopped the Trump administration from continuing their attacks on the Constitution. Late Thursday night, Don Lemon and several other black journalists were arrested for following a protest into a church. Protesters have also been arrested, and they are being charged with the FACE Act. The FACE Act is a law that prohibits people from physically blocking people from entering into doctors' offices or places of worship, which these protesters were not doing. They went into the church, they got loud, and they yelled at the pastor because apparently he is the field director of ICE in that area. DHS arrested Don Lemon, Traherne Jean Cruz, Jamal Lydell Lundy, and Georgia Fort. And Georgia Fort happens to be the vice president of the National Association of Black Journalists Minnesota chapter. She filmed her arrest, and in that video footage you can see an ICE agent creeping in the window, staring at her with his mask on. And then outside of her home, a bunch of masked DEA agents arrested her. Don Lemon's attorney is Abby Lowell, who also represented Letitia James, who got her charges dropped when the Trump administration tried to arrest her. Don Lemon spoke outside the courthouse after he was released, standing next to his husband, speaking about the First Amendment and how he looks forward to his day in court.
Everybody for their support. It truly means the world to me. I have no idea what's going on because obviously I haven't seen anything. I have spent my entire career covering the news. I will not stop now. In fact, there is no more important time than right now, this very moment, for a free and independent media that shines a light on the truth and holds those in power accountable. Again, I will not stop now. I will not stop ever. Last night, the DOJ sent a team of federal agents to arrest me in the middle of the night for something that I've been doing for the last 30 years, and that is covering the news. The First Amendment of the Constitution protects that work for me and for countless of other journalists who do what I do. I stand with all of them, and I will not be silenced. I look forward to my day in court. Thank you all.
Now, you would think with such a high-profile arrest that Pam Bondi herself would get out there to announce it, maybe flanked by a bunch of FBI agents, I don't know. But no, instead, she sent Todd Blanche up there, the deputy director, Todd Blanche, who got the sweetheart deal for Ghislaine Maxwell and sent her to a minimum security prison. He had to go up there like a bumbling idiot because Pam Bondi knows that what happened is wrong and they know they're not going to get a conviction. But that doesn't actually matter. The outcome doesn't matter. It's all about the spectacle. Pam Bondi did give a private interview to Lara Trump on Fox News, but here's Todd Blanche bumbling like an idiot when he is asked to react to the arrest of Don Lemon.
Sure about that. And to follow up on that, do you have a reaction to the arrest of Don Lemon overnight?
Do you have a reaction to what?
To Don Lemon's arrest overnight.
Do I have a reaction to it? I don't know what that means. What are you looking for me to do? Jump up and down? No, I don't have a reaction to it. I don't know that the charges are unsealed yet. No, I can't. I'm not going to comment on that.
That is the level of professionalism and respect that these people have for the rule of law. Now, speaking of Todd Blanche and Ghislaine Maxwell, 3 million more Epstein documents were dropped this week. Now, there were millions of pages in this most recent document dump, and just to give a quick recap, there's lots of weird stuff in there about Bill Gates and sleeping with Russian hookers and sneaking antibiotics to his wife. And of course, that seems to be the only thing that Republicans can focus on, because the rest of the Epstein files are quite literally filled with people from Trump's administration. There's emails about Howard Lutnick in there years after he claimed he stopped talking to Jeffrey Epstein. There's this email that says, "Hi, Matthew and Candace. Might you be able to give a few more details regarding lunch this Sunday? Do you know if it will just be Howard Lutnick, and his wife? Any kids coming along? Will they arrive J.E.'s Island via their boat? And around what time is good for them? If you could pass along when you know that, that would be great. Redacted are CC'd here." That is about Howard Lutnick. Elon Musk is also in the files, begging Jeffrey Epstein to invite him to some kind of party on the island. And Donald Trump is mentioned in there a bunch of times in incredibly horrific and graphic detail. Now, to be clear, not all of this is verified. A lot of this is just complaints to the FBI, but there is consistency in all of it. There is one call to the FBI that talks about Donald Trump having calendar girl parties with Jeffrey Epstein at Mar-a-Lago, where Epstein would bring children in and Trump would auction them off. He measured the children's parts by entering a finger and rating the children on tightness. The guests were elder men and included Elon Musk, Don Jr., Trump, Ivanka Trump, and Eric Trump were there. Attorney Alan Dershowitz was also there with attorney Bob Shapiro. We were taken in rooms, forced to give oral to Donald Trump, forced to allow them to penetrate us. I was 13 years old when Donald J. Trump raped me. Ghislaine Maxwell was also present. These new batch of files are absolutely disgusting, and they implicate a lot of people in Donald Trump's inner circle, including the Melania documentary director, Brett Ratner. There are emails that mention Brett Ratner's name, and there are even pictures of him next to Epstein with presumably underage girls whose faces have been redacted. And by the way, DOJ did not redact all the victims' names, and a lot of the survivors are pissed and are suing the administration. Todd Blanche in that press conference also mentioned the Epstein files, and he said some pretty insane stuff. Here's the clip.
Any depiction of CSAM or child pornography was obviously excluded. Anything that would jeopardize an active federal investigation. And finally, anything that depicts or contain images of death, physical abuse, or injury, also not produced.
He says images including CSAM and images that portray death and injury were not produced, implying that those exist. And there are emails that have been produced that just blatantly talk about how the sender, which his name is redacted, loves the torture videos that they were sent. So again, this administration drops the Epstein files the day that they arrest all of these journalists. They redact a bunch of names, but don't redact the survivors' names. They release them and then take them off the DOJ website when they realize how bad it is for them, only to put it back on when they realize everybody's already seen it. They have their MAGA trolls and MAGA bots out there only talking about Bill Gates, trying to distract from the Trumpiness of it all. And everyone involved in the Epstein-Donald Trump sex trafficking circle is now part of Trump's administration or his inner circle. Because again, Brett Ratner, this guy, he directed the Melania documentary, which dropped to absolutely no fanfare. They're all super excited because it grossed $8 million this weekend, but it cost like $75 million to make. And the reviews that are coming out about this movie are hilarious. This one, I believe it's from The Guardian, says, Melania review, Trump film is a gilded trash remake of The Zone of Interest. Dispiriting, deadly, and unrevealing, there is a decent documentary to be made about the former model from Slovenia, but this one is unredeemable. No doubt there is a great documentary to be made about Melania Nas, the ambitious model from out of Slovenia who married a New York real estate mogul and then found herself cast in the role of a latter-day Eva Braun, but the horrific Melania emphatically isn't it. It's one of those rare unicorn films that doesn't have a single redeeming quality. I'm not even sure it qualifies as a documentary, exactly so much as an elaborate piece of designer taxidermy, horribly overpriced and ice cold to the touch and proffered like a medieval tribute to placate the greedy king on his throne. And we can't forget the fact that Jeff Bezos paid tens of millions or billions of dollars to have this documentary made, as, like that author said, as a tribute to placate the king on his throne. There is so much more that I could talk about this week, including the fact that ICE has been announced to be providing security for the U.S. delegation at the Milan Olympics, and how the Italian people are protesting that. Italian politicians are holding protests. The fact that Ilhan Omar was attacked by a man during a town hall, and she stood her ground and almost punched him. He sprayed an unknown substance on her. It was later found out to be apple cider vinegar, and she is okay. But that happened in the wake of Maxwell Frost, Representative Maxwell Frost, being punched at Sundance Festival in Utah. Marco Rubio was at a Senate hearing where Senator Duckworth put him in his place. He also was seen popping pills during the Senate hearing. Here's that clip.
Race starts, and very powerful visit. Hope to debrief in it soon, if I might. By the way, I think if we were to pick an MVP of the West Wing,
Man was popping pills on camera, trying to pretend like he was hiding it and being sneaky. He then couldn't answer a single question and couldn't justify any of the horrible things that this regime has been doing that he is overseeing. But I want to end this video by quickly talking about the raid in Fulton County. The FBI raided the Georgia Elections Office to try and access their voter information from 2020 because Donald Trump is still convinced that he won that race. Letitia James is saying that they just did this to instill fear, which is exactly what is happening. And there's this crazy picture of Tulsi Gabbard skulking in the corner on the phone as the FBI is raiding the office. They are trying to scare election workers away from doing their jobs. They are trying to scare people away from voting in the midterms. Because as we've discussed in this video, the political fallout is very real. Republicans are losing elections all across the country, and the Republicans know that if the midterms are free and fair and people are not afraid to go vote, they will absolutely lose their jobs. So the Constitution be damned, states' rights be damned, they are going to raid elections offices. But election officials are standing their ground and pushing back against this tyranny. This has been an incredibly packed week full of violence and murder and misinformation coming from the Trump administration. But the people are not backing down. People are showing up to protest. People are still filming ICE agents. They are not afraid of them. Lawmakers and federal judges and U.S. citizens are fighting back every single day. And the Trump administration is panicking. I want to thank everybody for taking time out of their day to go over all the craziest news stories of the week with me. As always, folks, thanks so much for watching. Stay safe out there, and I will catch you on the next Sunday News Wrap-Up.